Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and today I am bringing you a video about the upcoming square between the Sun and Pluto and the Sun and Jupiter. Now this is the Sun in Aries, which you can see on the screen here at 24 degrees 58 minutes, and then you can see Pluto at 24 degrees 58 minutes. Now this is happening exactly on Tuesday, the 14th at 5:06 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now I'm also going to talk with you about the fact that the Sun will then be squaring Jupiter also tomorrow on Tuesday, because you can't really talk about Pluto right now without referring to the fact that Jupiter is very close to it. These two made a conjunction recently, specifically it was a week and 3 days ago on the 4th of April. And now this is the Sun's really first connection with these two energies since that conjunction. And what the Sun is doing is creating what's called a square. So there's 90 degrees between the Sun and Pluto tomorrow, the 14th, when this square occurs. Now, this is considered an opening square, which means it's what is called the crisis of consciousness, or we're becoming aware of something that needs to be addressed, essentially, because that's what squares are about. They deal with two energies trying to express themselves, but they almost like bump into each other at this angle. And so they have to kind of figure out how to operate or both get their needs met. And sometimes this requires, or it does require, an adjustment or some type of action often that has to be taken in order to essentially integrate the two energies. So what are the Sun and Pluto talking to us about? Well, if we think about the Sun in Aries especially, the Sun in Aries is considered exalted. So what that means is that the Sun shines in the sign of Aries very well. They're compatible. So the Sun is the principle of really our divinity. It's the piece of us that energetically is symbolic of the Sun. And the Sun radiates its light out into the world. So symbolically, that's what the Sun is in our charts. It's how we shine our light out into the world. And in Aries, like I said, it being exalted, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, symbolic of springtime in the Northern Hemisphere, we shine our light in a very enthusiastic way, in a very outgoing way. We want to act, we want to aggress, we have a lot of courage and kind of a warrior spirit to move forth out into the world. So this is really an interesting combination, because it's like this is the first time the Sun is in Aries since the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, and it's giving the Sun an opportunity to kind of integrate the expression of Jupiter-Pluto through this Aries warrior, courageous, strong, solar shining of our light out into the world. So what do Jupiter and Pluto symbolize? Well, Jupiter is the principle of philosophy. It's the principle of expanding our mind through new perspective, growth in perspective. It typically just represents growth. So whatever it's kind of working with, in this case Pluto, it can kind of expand the energy of the other planet too. But Jupiter often represents like optimism, good fortune, luck. You know, there's this kind of energy around Jupiter of like it bestowing, gifts upon us. But again, going back to the fact that it also has this amplification aspect, if you think about what Pluto is, Pluto has to do with the energy of death and transformation and rebirth. It has to do with plumbing the subconscious and discovering what's operating there and motivating us. So to have Jupiter, this planet of expansion and growth and new perspective, with Pluto, death and transformation, like tilling the soil of the soul and bringing what's down there up to the surface, you can kind of see like they're not exactly the same kind of energy. And if Jupiter just expands the Plutonian type of energy, then we need to be aware of how we might be trying to expand out into the world and trying to create new pathways, in a sense, out into the world with this very powerful energy of Pluto, especially if it's coming from this very kind of unconsciously driven, motivated place, and that can act itself out as like manipulation or trying to control, and not really thinking of how you're impacting those around you and the group. That's the best way for Pluto to express its energy, is if it's gone through that transformative process and is now really more self-aware. That's a lot about what Pluto is about. It wants to show us and reflect back to us our motivation and what's driving us. Now, the awesome part about that is if we can take the time to really investigate and go deep into our own subconscious and allow, that's really what Pluto is a lot about. It's like we have to be with what comes up. And a lot of times it's very emotionally driven because Pluto rules Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign. So it has a lot to do with a lot of like emotion that comes up, and it comes out as like wanting to like control and wanting to manipulate. And there might be just a lot of sort of churning of the emotional waters with Plutonian energy. So it's about being able to, and with Jupiter there, maybe this is helpful because we can kind of be open to seeing more of that aspect of ourselves and really being with it and allowing it, not in a way that is harmful to anybody else, but allowing ourselves to witness it, to observe it, and in that process, create the transformation of the energy. And I wanted to read something about Pluto. And this is from the Keywords book by Paul Grell. And he says that Pluto's influence is not of a milk and water nature, but rather drastic. Even its good aspects do not bring peace and quiet, tranquility of mind or circumstance, but stepped up activity depending upon the planet and aspect involved. Now, he's talking about if it's aspecting other planets in a natal chart, but then we can also apply this to the fact that it's aspecting the sun in this upcoming transit. He says it's easier to respond to Pluto's lower vibrations than to the highly attenuated positive vibrations. And he talks about the basic principles of Pluto being transition, reorganization, intensification, force, invisible planes, alchemy, and extrasensory perception. And these can positively be expressed as transformation, rejuvenation, transmutation, universal welfare, revitalization, spirituality, regeneration, and positive clairvoyance. And it's in its destructive or negative aspects, we see it as destruction, recklessness, fanaticism, regimentation, atrocities, lawlessness, sensuality, and the underworld. So you can get the vibe of Pluto, like it's really powerful. Now, again, going back to the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, what this is suggesting is that when this conjunction happened a week and 3 days ago between the two, it was setting the stage for the next 13 years of this kind of deep but expansive transformation that we're all having a chance to go through at this time. And what is it expanding and transforming? Capricorn themes, which have to do with the structures and the foundations that we've built our lives upon, or that we've invested in. That can be things like government, or it can be bringing up anything dealing with authority figures. Those can be parental authority figures, or the people in our lives that we put authority in. So there's a deep transformative process happening right now and over the next 13 years with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction having happened, that's really going to be expanding our perspective and allowing this deep transformation to occur in those Capricorn areas of life. What happens is as we go through this transformation, the energy that was going into all of those other ways of being that we were being unconsciously driven by, that energy gets freed up. And so another positive aspect of Jupiter-Pluto is really being able to powerfully expand, powerfully grow, powerfully, drive our creative aspirations, basically. And that's a really positive aspect of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So going back to the Sun squaring Pluto tomorrow, April 14th, what's happening is this is the Sun's first time connecting with that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And we are beginning to have the opportunity to see how we want to start integrating this Jupiter-Pluto energy into how we shine our light in that very strong Aries, very like a warrior or assertive type of way. And this is just going to bring up potentially a time where, we may have to look at some of our personal dynamics, some of the dynamics in our own lives that may need to be adjusted, or may need to be, we have to kind of gather our strength and gather our courage, shining our light in this new way, because that's what Aries is symbolic of. It's the new. But it may involve having to incorporate some of this powerful desire to grow our perspective and grow our lives and grow the direction that we're going in, which, again, with Pluto may require some sort of, basically, it could kind of just change the way that we want to start moving out into the world, shining our light. It could be showing us where we've been in power dynamics with others, or where we haven't been owning our own power, and really helping us to step into it through this process of transformation. So I wanted to read something from the Astrology King about this particular transit of Sun squaring Pluto. And he writes, the Sun squared Pluto transit increases your need to be in control, but can also lead to ego conflicts with other powerful people or authority figures. A crisis or conflict with someone makes for an intense experience that can lead to extreme or destructive behavior. Such challenges can force you into a corner where you have to either defend your position or make a major change. The intense experience will trigger deeply buried psychological issues involving fears or death or losing control, being abused, tortured, or persecuted. These deep rooted fears may even be past life related or related to more recent brushes with the dark side of life, such as addiction, spiritual warfare, or rape. Once you gain consciousness of the reasons you feel so in need to be be in control, you can evolve to a higher level and let things go, relax, and feel less threatened. This transformation is like a rebirth and will leave you with a greater sense of inner power. You can then channel your intensity into success through ambition and hard work. So that's the sun, that's his description of the sun squared Pluto energy. It's about seeing these power dynamics that are potentially based in what he's suggesting is past life, because Pluto does deal with past life energy, but also it can just be past times in our life where our power has been taken away, or our power has been subverted. And or maybe we've chosen to do that on some level, where we've given our power away. And so this Sun Pluto energy is going to kind of churn up some of that energy and show us where we may not be fully being in our power or owning our power. It's important that we kind of can see through the veil, because again, Pluto is a very tricky energy because it's hidden from us. So we may think that it's something out there that is causing us to, feel a certain way, but really it has to do with reclaiming our own power that we have sort of emotionally invested into situations. And so if we can kind of really give ourselves the space to be with all the emotion that comes up and let it kind of erupt and then settle a bit, that's when we'll be able to start to really kind of reintegrate the Plutonian energy and draw it back in, so that then we can put it in and invest it into where it is the best for us, where it's the healthiest for us, and where it's the healthiest for us, and it's the healthiest for those around us too, because we're no longer sort of being driven by these unconscious patterns and these unconscious behaviors. So that's some Sun squared Pluto information. And again, we have to take into consideration that Jupiter and Pluto are together. And with Jupiter being there, as opposed to just being only the Sun squaring Pluto, with Jupiter there, it really has to do with transforming our beliefs. That's a lot of what Jupiter is about. And then Jupiter bringing expansion and growth and prosperity, so this is a very positive combination with Jupiter and Pluto. And especially Jupiter and Pluto can be a very driven person. It can be a bit fanatical, because Jupiter is our beliefs and Pluto is, again, it's like this intensely powerful energy. So there could be a little bit of need to kind of understand where we might be trying really hard to, push our perspective or make somebody else, see things the way that we do. This is about kind of transforming that type of behavior, especially like old perspectives. Capricorn has to do with what's tried and true. It's doing it the same, and it's an earth energy, and it kind of hangs in there. It's very persistent, so this Jupiter Pluto transformation of Capricorn right now is really helping us shed a lot of the old kind of patriarchy energy too, because that's somewhat of what Capricorn can be. I feel like the energy of Capricorn is going through a huge transformation right now, and it's going to be something different when this transformation is over, especially after this 13-year period of the Jupiter-Pluto cycle completing. We're going to have a different relationship to the Capricorn energy, but the Capricorn energy has gotten, really bad rap because it's just been kind of perverted. It's been it's that male, and I'm not saying just in men, but it's the male patriarchal type of energy that we've all invested in some way or another, whether it's like, whatever success looks like, or what relationship looks like between men and women. We've all invested in this over the years, and the whole Capricorn transformation is happening. And so some of this Jupiter, Pluto, and Capricorn with the sun squaring it, the sun in Aries, again, our fighting spirit, our the impulse to be, that there might be something changing around our relationship to this patriarchal energy, and the way that it has helped us to kind of create the life that we have now, or the foundations that we've built our life on, and how that may need to change, whatever that is. All right, so then Jupiter. And there's two more things I want to talk about after Jupiter. One is the fact that Chiron and Mercury will be conjuncting during this time, and the moon will be going over Pluto and Jupiter at this time. So going back to Jupiter and Capricorn with the square. So this is happening also, actually, I'm sorry, it's happening the next day, Wednesday, April 15th, 4:58 a.m. And really, what this could be bringing is, after we've done the Pluto looking deeply at things, now we've got the Jupiter, which is more about the abundance and the growth and the new perspective. And so with the sun in Aries squared Jupiter in Capricorn, this could be kind of shining the light on maybe some of the new ways of looking at things that we might begin to experience, bringing some possibility into the picture. With the sun and Jupiter together in a square, sometimes that can also bring like over promising or over optimism, kind of really promising too much, because Jupiter just is so big, and it can think of so much possibility, that if it's squaring with the solar nature of our light and our spirit and our individuality, there can just need to be maybe some caution as we move forward in not kind of going off on some tangent about things where we just are overshooting things. We need to definitely kind of stay grounded. But Jupiter in Capricorn is a better energy for staying grounded, because again, Capricorn is earth, and it kind of says, okay, what are the nuts and bolts of how we're going to be doing this moving forward? It really wants to know what to do. So Sun, Jupiter, just, a positive energy, really bringing a little bit of life and revival into the picture, but just needing to be aware of over promising, or just really overstepping, the boundaries, or believing so much in something that isn't necessarily grounded in reality. So I want to point out that the moon, going back here, if you can see it at 19 Capricorn, when the Sun-Pluto square happens, then if we fast forward by the hour at around 3:06 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we are getting the moon and Pluto conjuncting. And then you can see the moon gets really close here to Jupiter just an hour later. So the moon is going to be activating Pluto and Jupiter, just as the sun has squared Pluto, and right before the sun squares Jupiter. So the moon basically just is an activator. It brings up our intuition, our emotions, our feelings in relationship essentially to this pattern here of Jupiter and Pluto conjuncting Capricorn. It sets things off. So it's just going to be a really powerful day, because the moon could be in any sign during this time that the sun is squaring Pluto and Jupiter, but it's actually in the sign of Capricorn, setting off this conjunction, which means it's also in the last quarter square, squaring the the moon squaring the sun before the next new moon cycle. So the last quarter square tells us basically, things are kind of winding down. They're coming to an end in the lunar cycle, and asking us to reflect a bit more, let go a little bit more. And so with the moon in Capricorn and the sun in Aries, again, the moon in Capricorn, emotions expressed through this Capricornian energy or way. It could just be saying, on an emotional level, we're being asked to kind of be mature, to be have like personal authority, to have morals. These are the aspects of the moon in Capricorn that might be coming up. And because it's squaring that sun in Aries, it's like the sun in Aries is wanting to go and shine its light, but the moon in Capricorn is kind of saying, okay, I've just gone over Pluto and Jupiter, and I've gathered some information about, transformation, about expansion and growth. And so here's, on a very practical level and on a very mature level, on a very responsible level, what we need to be doing. Here's the feelings around all of that. All right, and then the other thing that's going to be happening during this time too, also on the 14th, so the 14th is a very big day, is that Chiron and Mercury are going to be conjunct in Aries. And Mercury communicating, it's just moved into the sign of Aries. And Chiron, the wounded healer, in the sign of Aries, it's been there for a while. Chiron spends the longest in the sign of Aries. I think it's about 5 years. But Chiron and Mercury coming together at this time is going to suggest that there's something about the way we communicate in this Aries way, in this forthright, in this strong way, in this inspired way, is working with the wound, but also with the wounded healer. And the wound in Chiron and Aries wound has to do with not feeling our worth, not feeling strong, not feeling ourself. But the healing that comes with it is through this process of realizing that the outside reflects the inside, so that the people that we attract, or the situations that we attract that constantly make us feel like that, are a reflection of our own connection to our worth. That the healing then becomes being able to stand solidly in ourself and in our worth, and to be able to then to no longer need to relate to the world through that wound and in that way. And then we can actually turn around and share that healing with others who also suffer from the same wound. So there's something about the way we communicate, the things that we say, and then that wound, or the healing of that wound, that's going to come into play on this day as well. And I feel like what that can be doing, especially with this power of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and with the square from the sun to those two planets, that this is an opportunity on this day to step into our strength, sun in Aries, to transform these outdated perspectives that we've built the foundation and structure of our lives upon, and to really kind of like communicate from a very wounded healer place of feeling our worth, and being able to speak our worth, and being able to be that sun and Aries energy, and really transform and grow our lives in new ways, and have this kind of be the beginning of a process of speaking our minds. That's really about Mercury and Aries, and not being afraid. And Jupiter Pluto will really help us harness our power and our control and our focus in order to help us, step more into this new way of being out into the world at this time. That is everything I have to say at this time. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my channel, please subscribe. I'd appreciate that so much. And take care. See you next time.